Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Tuesday the 15th of November comes to you from London. And we start by looking, as always, at the dollar index. Not a stronger day yesterday, but it really is holding on to these gains. It did just briefly break the 100 mark, and that really would just take us to breaking this psychologically important level on the dollar. And more importantly, we're just starting to see new highs being broken all the time. So the 2015 high now coming under pressure, and there were two highs in that year, and if we break that, then another run like 2014. Remember, these are the long-term charts, the medium-term charts, the weekly, daily, and 60-minute, and the short-term charts. Short-term uptrend above the cloud, medium-term uptrend above the cloud, and a long-term uptrend above the cloud, and a new upside target of 104. That's a 5% increase in the dollar. So we're seeing really dollar strength kicking through, and of course that correspondingly means euro weakness, and we're seeing here below the cloud, below the cloud, below the cloud. So it's bearish, bearish, bearish on all time frames. A new downside target of 101 activated. That's 6% downside. Two targets pointing to that same place. That's what we call a cluster. And we have a myriad of targets here: 102, 103, 105, 103. Lots of downside potential here for the euro. And if we break to new lows, then we activate some very big downside targets. Very hard to believe, but we do have significant downside targets taking us below parity. And if we look at the Japanese yen, the dollar yen rate really increasing. This is really the proxy for the dollar. A lot of strength showing here. Dollar buys more yen, and we're seeing this medium-term chart really rocketing through. Long-term picture not changed yet, but the medium term is, and the short term is as well, and there's still around 2% upside on the dollar yen rate. Look at sterling. Sterling had a big recovery since the US election. We're just holding the cloud support here on the lagging line at the moment at about the 125 level, and we just are seeing that holding on. But we are, of course, bearish long term, bearish medium term, and we do have a new downside target of 121.64. That's 2.6% activated, and very big downside targets still on the medium and long term charts. So sterling having a bit of a respite at the moment, but the picture is still pretty bearish. But the sterling euro chart is quite interesting. We're holding on to the strength here, just crossing through on the lagging line on the price, but not yet on the chart on the lagging line, but not on the lagging line. And interestingly, price just coming through. So we're just seeing a little bit of strength here, but the interesting thing is we're just hitting some resistance at about this 116 level, and that's really where it's settling at the moment. But sterling is showing more strength over the euro right now. And if we look at the sterling Swiss rate, much the same picture as the euro, a little bit of upside here, just hitting resistance at the moment, but about 2.5% upside still potentially there, although new medium-term targets would be activated if we move to new lows. And again, the Australian dollar, similar picture, sort of a big rise in sterling strength against the Australian dollar, but now we've got targets back 2% lower to 161. If we take a look at stock markets, the US stock market, S&P 500 index, the main sort of index for the US market, really just struggling to break this 2180 level. We can see here we've had a recovery since the election. We're back into bullish territory. We have got upside targets of 4.5% and 3%, so we have got upside potential here, and we've also got upside potential on the long and medium term charts as well. So it's looking good, but just struggling to get above this 2180 level. Nasdaq looking less good, still bearish below the cloud on the lagging line, 3.5% downside. We are just seeing Nasdaq not enjoying the election result as much. Conversely, the Dow Jones index breaking to new highs and holding those new highs. New all-time highs here on the weekly chart showing through. That was last week's candle, big move there. Here we see that translating into the days and the 60-minute trend showing through as well. We've got an upside target which is activated of 10.5%. So it looks like US bellwether stocks, non-tech, is where the action is right now. And if we look at the Russell, same picture really, just breaking here, breaking the 2015 high. So Russell index starting to really show. So the smaller caps in the US all enjoying a rally as well. So it's a really mixed picture. Tech not doing so well, the small caps and the big caps non-tech doing well. So that's showing through here on the Russell. No short-term upside targets to play for, but lots in the medium term and long term, so looking pretty good. If you look at the futures today, just before the US market opens, we do have upside on both the S&P and the Nasdaq future, so it does suggest we might see the market opening higher. If we look at FTSE is up this morning, so we do 6795. We're just trying to claw back towards this 7,000 level. We do have an upside target, not quite yet activated, of about 2.5%. So really on a knife edge for FTSE. Long-term upside targets still very much in place. So if we can get back above this cloud and start motoring, then FTSE should do quite well. The FTSE 250 is actually looking a little bit stronger than FTSE 100. That's strong sterling just having a little bit of an impact on the FTSE 100 with international companies. And if we look at the DAX, DAX index is just breaking out, just trying to get through on this long-term transition on the weekly cloud, on the daily cloud, just really testing this support level. 10,800 is where we need to break, and we saw yesterday we were just trying to do that. We do have an upside target of 11,650, 8.6%, and that is activated. Nikkei didn't have such a good night. Had been a very strong showing in Asia the last couple of days. Didn't have such a strong night overnight, but very small pullback. Not even virtually zero change in the market there. So still pretty good. And we've seen the 16% upside picture here. Shanghai much the same. Hang Seng didn't have such a good day on Monday, but has actually pulled back on Tuesday. There's a lot of downside targets still hanging over the Hang Seng index. India also not having such a great time lately. We're just seeing this same thing just falling through the cloud. And the Australian market has really been struggling long term, just getting through the cloud, medium term below the cloud, and just getting through on the short term, but a pretty mixed picture. Now, if we take a look at commodities, Brent was down quite sharply yesterday, did recover towards the end of the day, and we are seeing that through this morning, back above the $45 mark, but we are below the cloud again on the daily, and this just puts us in a subdued frame of mind. We are seeing the seasonal aspect where we fall in the latter part of the year starting to have an impact on Brent. And if we look at WTI, inevitably the picture is quite similar. Both these oil markets are up about 2.5% this morning, so we are just seeing a recovery of sorts, but we are bearish below the cloud. Downside potential here, 25%. Back into the low 30s, so we are seeing targets, and that we do need to just keep an eye on that. If we look at the nat gas market, nat gas, Henry Hub was quite interesting here. We were just trying to make this transition on the weekly. We're just holding on here on the daily, we're just through a bit on the lagging line, but getting back above the cloud, and we are seeing the transition here on the 60-minute chart. We do have upside potential of about 3%, so we're still seeing a slight improvement there. Looking at coffee, just some of the softs, coffee recovering quite strongly this morning, but we are below the cloud on the short-term chart, and we're seeing here on the weekly through, the daily through, so coffee has been pretty positive generally. Interestingly, gold has had a pretty tough time lately. It's just been below the cloud, recovering a little bit this morning, and we're seeing that just playing through as well. But we are still below the cloud here. Downside targets to play for. Just hitting support at the moment. Remember, if we don't quite meet this target to the downside on the medium-term chart and then start to reverse, that would be bullish confirmation that we didn't reach the target. We do have a new downside target here for about 12%, but big upside targets to play for, and this chart is still bullish on the long term. So a very interesting picture. And if we look at the silver chart, much the same, below the clouds now, did sell off more strongly than gold yesterday, but we do have an upside target that's activated, a downside one that's not. So we need to keep an eye on that. Copper has been the real surprise, really rocketed in the last couple of weeks. Just incredible rocket there, about 20% increase. And we're just seeing now that coming back through the cloud, some downside targets. So we are just seeing a little bit of a sell-off there as well. The big story for the US bond markets is the big pop in rates. Well above 2% now, 2.5% is on the cards. We're looking at 220 at the moment. We're seeing these targets. These targets were given, remember, way back at 1.5, and we've seen those targets given and met. Not much new targets to play for, so we're seeing about 230 here on the short-term charts if we make some highs to activate that, but still a bullish picture, and this long-term change on the weekly chart just starting to show through. We take a look at some of the tech stocks. Apple below the cloud, reacting quite negatively to the US election result. Google, much the same, below the cloud as well. Amazon, below the cloud. So we're seeing tech just generally selling off. This Amazon chart quite worrying the way we're coming through on the cloud here. Facebook also now through on the daily cloud. That's the first time in a while that we've been through the daily cloud. So it's really quite worrying here for Amazon and Facebook, and a lot of these stocks just selling off. So will we see a buying opportunity, a recovery coming into train? Just need to keep an eye on that. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.